Nobody prepares a man for the silence that comes after the storm. The papers are signed, the arguments are over, the house is quieter than it has ever been. And suddenly, you're left standing in the wreckage of something that used to be your life. You can still see the faint outlines of what was, the pictures on the walls, the indentation on her side of the bed, the toothbrush that you can't bring yourself to throw away. It's not just the woman you've lost, it's the rhythm of your days, the meaning in your small routines, the invisible thread that made you feel like life had direction. Divorce doesn't just take a partner, it steals the illusion that life will always stay as you built it. This is the moment Marcus Aurelius was speaking to when he wrote about accepting what fate sends as if you had chosen it yourself. Because the pain you feel right now, the emptiness, the confusion, the disbelief, that is your test. The world has stripped you down to your essence. You no longer have anyone to perform for, no expectations to fulfill, no mirror to define yourself through. What's left is the raw, unfiltered you, the man behind the noise, the man without an audience. And that's where the rebuilding begins. Divorce feels like death because it is a kind of death, the death of the future you thought you had. But in that death lies the seed of rebirth. The Stoics believed that peace isn't found in avoiding pain, but in mastering it. Right now, your mind is your battlefield. It will try to replay every memory, every conversation, every what if. It will try to convince you that you failed, that you weren't enough, that your best years are behind you. But Marcus would tell you that these are illusions. You are not the sum of your losses. You are the measure of your response. So what should a man do after a breakup or divorce? The first thing is nothing. Don't run to distractions. Don't drown it in alcohol. Don't rush to prove that you've moved on. Sit with it. Face it. The silence you're terrified of is your teacher now, because it's in that silence that your mind starts to detox from the chaos. You'll start noticing things again. The sound of the wind at night, the weight of your own breathing, the way sunlight hits the window in the morning. These small moments are not meaningless. They're the first signs of healing, the reminders that life continues, indifferent but beautiful. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, loss, and death constantly, yet his writings aren't full of bitterness. They're full of restraint, clarity, and acceptance. He understood that every ending forces a man to answer one question: who am I without what I've lost? And that's what you must answer now, not through words, but through action. Through the way you wake up tomorrow, through the way you rebuild your body, your mind, your environment, through the way you stop looking backward for explanations and start looking inward for purpose. The truth is, your ex's life will become noise. Her new world, her social media, her new relationships, they're none of your concern. Let her chase whatever peace she thinks she'll find out there. Your focus now is internal, rebuilding from the inside out, not for revenge, not to prove anything, but to become a man who no longer needs validation from what left him. Because when Marcus said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one," he wasn't being poetic. He was describing exactly this moment. Right now, the path forward is simple but brutal. Accept, adapt, and advance. Accept that it's over. Adapt to who you are without her. And advance into the kind of life that makes peace your default state, not your reward. Because peace, not passion, not approval, is the only prize worth fighting for after everything falls apart. The hardest part isn't the loss itself, it's the identity collapse that follows. For years, you were us. You made decisions as a pair. You existed inside a shared rhythm, holidays, routines, plans that stretched years into the future. Now it's just you. And in the beginning, that aloneness feels like punishment. But Marcus would remind you, the universe doesn't punish, it purifies. When everything familiar disappears, you get to see what's real. The noise of partnership, the compromises, the routines, the endless emotional negotiations kept your mind occupied. Now that it's gone, you're left with silence. and silence exposes truth. You start realizing how much of your personality was shaped by trying to keep peace, how many of your ambitions were put on pause for stability, how often you softened yourself just to be accepted. That's the pain of detachment, realizing you've lived a version of yourself edited for someone else's comfort. This is the point where most men break or awaken. Some start chasing substitutes, another woman, another high, another distraction. They can't stand the emptiness, so they fill it with noise. But those who choose to stay still long enough to listen to the silence instead of running from it, they begin to hear something deeper. The voice of the man who existed before the marriage, before compromise, before conformity. The voice that says, "I'm still here." Marcus Aurelius taught that no man can lose what is truly his by nature. She can take the house, the routines, even your sense of stability, but she can't take your capacity for thought, discipline, and virtue. Those are yours. They are the foundation of who you are. And rebuilding begins the moment you stop grieving what's gone and start refining what remains. Start small. Structure your days again. Wake up early. Make your bed. Work your body. Eat clean. Build routine around the basics. You are reprogramming yourself after emotional chaos. A man without structure becomes prey to his mind, but a man who controls his habits controls his destiny. This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy, it becomes therapy. When your heart feels like it's collapsing, order becomes medicine. The act of doing small things well reminds your nervous system that you are still in control. Marcus would tell you that life doesn't care what you've lost. The world keeps moving, indifferent to your heartbreak. But that's not cruelty, that's grace. Because it means you have permission to start again. You have permission to rise without needing anyone's approval. The past is gone and clinging to it is like trying to breathe underwater. You survive by letting go. So don't waste time analyzing her choices. Don't stalk her new life. Don't replay what went wrong in your head like a movie that refuses to end. That's emotional self-harm disguised as reflection. Your only task now is mastery over your reactions, your energy, and your direction. Because Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to impress anyone. He wrote them to keep his soul calm in chaos. That's your mission now. To become the man who doesn't crumble when life burns his plans to ashes. Every man after divorce faces a question: will I let this define me, or will I use it to refine me? The Stoic answer is simple. It's already refining you. The pain is the forge, the silence is the fire. The discipline you build now is the weapon you'll carry into the next chapter. There's a strange moment that comes weeks or months after the breakup. A morning when you wake up and realize the world hasn't stopped. The birds still sing. The sun still rises. The coffee still smells the same. And for the first time, you don't immediately think about her. That's the moment Marcus Aurelius was talking about when he said, "Time is a sort of river of passing events, and strong is its current. No sooner is a thing brought to sight than it is swept by and another takes its place." You start to understand that pain, like everything else, passes if you stop trying to hold on to it. But here's where most men get trapped. They confuse healing with avoidance. They think moving on means pretending it never mattered. They bury it under work, new women, or endless distractions, hoping the noise will erase the memories. But it doesn't. It only delays the reckoning. Marcus would tell you that the only way out is through. You face the memories. You dissect them, not to relive them, but to extract wisdom. What did you ignore? What did you tolerate? What did you sacrifice that you never should have? The Stoic way is not to erase emotion, but to discipline it. You don't deny that you were hurt. You acknowledge it, study it, then refuse to let it rule you. You let the lessons calcify into character. Because pain without understanding is suffering, but pain with understanding becomes growth. That's why Marcus never preached about avoiding hardship. He said the obstacle is the way, because every obstacle forces you to confront the parts of yourself that comfort kept hidden. This is the time to rebuild your inner architecture, relearn how to enjoy your own company, Rebuild your habits not around what you lost, but around what you want to become. Go back to the gym, not to get revenge, but to restore discipline. Read books that challenge you. Take walks without headphones and listen to your thoughts. Write down the things you wish someone had told you during the marriage, because that's your blueprint for the man you're becoming. Men often think strength means never breaking, but Marcus would tell you that true strength is the ability to bend without snapping. You're not weak because you hurt, you're human. But now you must transmute that pain into focus. You must turn heartbreak into fuel for higher purpose. Because when your world collapses, you get to choose what rises from the ruins. Some men build walls, others build temples. The difference is intention. There will be nights when the loneliness still hits hard, when you miss the simple things, her voice in the kitchen, the sound of laughter echoing through a shared space. When that happens, don't resist it. Let the ache pass through you like wind through open hands. Remind yourself, this too is part of living. Marcus Aurelius said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. That's not optimism, that's realism. You've survived something that breaks most men. You're still here, breathing, thinking, growing. And that's enough for now. Your task isn't to replace her. It's to replace the version of yourself that depended on her. The man who needed external validation to feel worthy must die so the man who draws power from peace can emerge. You are not rebuilding to prove anything to anyone. You are rebuilding because life demands evolution. Divorce isn't your ending. It's the fire that tempers the steel of your soul. There's a quiet moment in every man's recovery when the sadness begins to fade and something unexpected takes its place. Clarity. Not the kind that comes with a burst of joy, but the slow, grounded awareness that you're no longer who you were. You look around and realize the old version of you, the one who tried to please, the one who negotiated his peace for comfort, is gone. What stands in his place isn't complete yet, but he's becoming solid. This is the man Marcus Aurelius was speaking to when he wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look there. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't owe you a new beginning. You have to build it yourself. Divorce stripped away your false sense of control, but it also freed you from illusions. The illusion that happiness depended on another person. The illusion that love means surrendering your individuality. The illusion that peace comes from being chosen." Marcus understood that peace isn't something the world gives you. It's something you create when you stop resisting what already is. So what does rebuilding actually look like? It starts with ownership. No more blaming. No more if only. Every decision from here on must carry the weight of responsibility. You rebuild by becoming brutally honest with yourself. You stop pretending you were always the victim, and you start examining where your weaknesses were, not to punish yourself, but to correct your foundation. The Stoics believed that self-honesty is the truest form of respect. You can't rebuild on lies, you rebuild on truth. Then comes discipline, the backbone of peace. You've already lost enough to chaos, now you need order. Create a structure that demands growth from you. Wake up early, not because it's trendy, but because the early hours are sacred. They belong to men who are rebuilding. Exercise daily, not just to sculpt your body, but to discipline your mind. Work on your craft like it's a spiritual act. Your purpose now isn't to impress anyone, it's to master yourself. Every drop of sweat, every rep, every page read, every moment spent in solitude is a brick in the new fortress of who you're becoming. And as you build, you'll notice something strange. The more you focus inward, the less you crave external validation. You stop caring who's watching. You stop comparing your healing timeline to hers. You start realizing that she's no longer your mirror. Her life is her lesson. Yours is your ascension. That shift is the true rebirth. When the need for revenge dies, peace takes its place. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, and loss while ruling an empire, yet he never surrendered his calm. He practiced detachment, not from life, but from illusion. That's your next step. Detach from the outcome. Stop obsessing over what could have been. You're not rebuilding to get back what was lost. You're rebuilding to become what you were always meant to be. Because what you thought was destruction was really an invitation. Life forced you to shed everything temporary so you could finally discover what's eternal inside you. Now you begin living like a man who no longer needs chaos to feel alive. You start enjoying stillness. You find purpose in simple things. A good meal, a long walk, honest work, quiet nights. These aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of wisdom. They mean you've stopped seeking storms and started building shelter. You've stopped chasing approval and started cultivating peace. You are not broken. You are becoming. And every moment of solitude is sacred because it's reshaping you into a man who doesn't just survive heartbreak, he transcends it. There comes a moment, after months of rebuilding, when your reflection stops looking like a stranger. The lines on your face carry a different kind of story now, not just of loss, but of survival. You start to realize that what you went through didn't destroy you. It stripped away everything that was false. Marcus Aurelius understood this transformation better than anyone. He knew that pain refines the soul the way fire refines metal. A man who has endured heartbreak and remained standing carries a quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Trust will feel distant at first. You'll tell yourself that you'll never open up again, that no one deserves access to the parts of you that were once betrayed. But Marcus would remind you, to close yourself off entirely is to live half a life. You don't rebuild trust by giving it freely again. You rebuild it by learning discernment. You start recognizing the difference between connection and attachment, between interest and investment, between chemistry and compatibility. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. That's wisdom. That's what heartbreak teaches when you refuse to let bitterness take root. You also learn that love isn't supposed to consume you. It's supposed to complement you. A man who has found peace within himself no longer falls in love out of emptiness. He chooses to share his abundance. Marcus believed that true strength was self-governance, mastering your reactions, your expectations, your desires. That's what it means to love again as a Stoic, without losing yourself, without needing the other person to complete you. You become a man who could walk away at any moment, not because you're cold, but because you're whole. There will be people who misunderstand this calm. They'll call it detachment or emotional distance, but that's only because they've never experienced the serenity of a man who's faced ruin and didn't flinch. You've gone through the fire, you've buried your illusions, and now you carry a kind of silence that unsettles people who are still chasing noise. That's the essence of Stoicism, not the absence of feeling, but the control of it. You still feel everything, but nothing controls you anymore. And when you finally reach that point, when peace no longer feels like a luxury but a default state, you start to see the divorce or breakup for what it truly was. Not punishment, but liberation. It forced you to meet yourself, to face your weaknesses, to grow beyond them. You stop wishing it hadn't happened because you realize that without it, you would never have awakened. The man who emerges from heartbreak with clarity, composure, and compassion is untouchable. He becomes what Marcus Aurelius always wrote about, a man in harmony with himself, indifferent to the storms of life, grounded in purpose, guided by principle. So what should a man do after a divorce or breakup? He should rebuild, quietly, relentlessly, with dignity. He should master himself, not chase what left. He should turn his pain into discipline, his solitude into strength, and his past into wisdom. And when the world looks at him and wonders how he survived, he won't need to explain. His peace will speak for him. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius wrote his reflections to himself, not for applause, not for history, but as a reminder. Because in the end, every man must become his own philosopher, No therapist, no friend, no lover can fully guide you through the quiet chaos that follows heartbreak. You have to sit with yourself and look directly at what's left, not the ruins, but the raw foundation. That's where your next life begins. You start realizing that what broke you was never truly the loss of another person. It was the illusion that you couldn't live without them. You believed that your happiness depended on external stability, but it never did. Stability comes from inner order. Love comes from alignment. Happiness comes from integrity. The quiet knowing that you're living as the man you were meant to be. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's not poetic comfort. That's direction. Divorce may have emptied your home, but it also cleared your space. It made room for discipline, for stillness, for truth. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You begin to move through your days with purpose, not chasing validation, not performing strength, but simply being it. You take care of your body because it houses your mind. You guard your mind because it shapes your reality. And you speak less because now your actions are your language. And here's the quiet irony. When you finally stop needing anyone to complete you, life begins to attract people who reflect your peace. Real ones, balanced ones, women who are drawn to calm, not chaos, friends who admire your integrity, not your distractions, opportunities that match your new vibration. It's not luck, it's alignment. The universe stops testing you when you stop resisting its lessons. Marcus Aurelius believed that a man's greatest victory is mastery over himself. That's what this entire journey has been about, not winning her back, not proving your worth, not escaping loneliness, but mastering yourself so deeply that nothing external can ever control your internal state again. That's the man who becomes free, not when life gets easier, but when he becomes unshakable. So after a divorce or breakup, don't just heal, evolve. Don't just survive, ascend. Don't just rebuild. Reclaim your throne, because you are not a victim of heartbreak. You are the product of rebirth. You are the man who learned the hardest way that peace is not given, it's earned. And when you finally reach that place where silence feels like home, when peace feels more addictive than chaos ever did, you'll understand why everything had to happen exactly as it did. You didn't lose her. You found you. So remember this, brother. The end was never the end. It was your awakening. If this message spoke to your soul, share it with another man who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more wisdom drawn from the ancient minds that still guide us today. And if you believe in this message, support the channel through the link in the description. Every contribution helps spread the truth Marcus Aurelius lived by. You cannot control what happens, but you can always control who you become.